You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
It takes so much mental capacity to stay on topic. Yeah, because we have ADD. Drop the phone.
ADHD.
Do you think if we would have found out that, like, how different would our life be if we were diagnosed? Actually, if we would have been diagnosed with ADD back in like the 80s, we would have been so fucked up right now, right? Because then, they only gave kids Ritalin back then. I mean, it's not like they give them much anything else nowadays, but
I don't know. I don't know if it would have made a difference. I don't know if it would have hurt. I don't know if it would have helped. I don't know.
I guess
we found out when we found out.
We did. We discovered it.
Yeah.
Thank you, TikTok. Overlord TikTok. So today's episode, we're going to be unpacking and picking apart and sharing our point of view on relationship advice that gets passed down from generation to generation, is still kind of hanging around in culture and society, that is really seriously, truthfully outdated and no longer really useful. Mm-hmm. But we all have programs with it, right? So we've got some ones that we're going to discuss and talk about.
Also, like lots of, we started the conversation on social media just a little bit. We made a reel and we've had some, like, it is triggering some people. So if really this triggers you, like, that's okay. Like you get to have your experience, and then, like, why is it triggering you? Like, let's look into it. And what is it? Is it taking away safety? Just get curious about it. Also, if it never really felt right, but you feel like that's what you were supposed to do, maybe an invitation to look at some other things here. So
yeah. So we're going to get into it. The first one, and it's based off of that reel that she just talked about, was don't go to bed angry. I know I've heard this before. Mm-hmm. I know that I subscribed to this for a very long time.
Never go to bed angry.
Right.
Never.
It's so dangerous.
Right.
If you go to bed angry, you might wake up angry.
If you do that, you're going to get a divorce. That's where it starts, right there. You go to bed angry, you wake up angry, everything is shifted. It just continues to where there's, like, it's basically the doom. It allows a separation. What's wrong?
You're fine.
You were looking at me weird.
I'm sitting up straight.
Did we go to bed angry?
No, we've gone to bed angry.
No, many times.
And we've woken up angry too.
We have.
But I remember over the course of my life, like, I used to do this thing when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. What'd you do?
And kid is like 20 years ago, whatever, when I was a teenager, when I was in my early 20s. I used to ask old people, like, what's the secret to a happy relationship?
Yeah.
Not just like random old people, but, people that I would come into contact with, coworkers or something like that, that were, in my mind at that time, right? They're probably in their fucking 40s when I was asking.
Probably. And they're like, you asshole.
Right. But I would ask them, like, hey, you've been together, you've been married for 40 years.
100 years.
Like, what's your advice? What are some secrets? And a couple of times I've heard this one.
Yeah.
Like, I remember hearing it. I was like, yeah, you just don't ever go to bed angry.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. And I remember thinking, like, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
That would be really detrimental.
Yeah. I get that. We, like, abided by it too for a while. Mm-hmm. And I liked that,
Right.
My, like, keep engaging brain chemicals liked that. It was like, we cannot go to bed angry. We have to stay in this.
There was also the part of it that was like, we were doing the hard thing that was going to make us a strong, healthy relationship.
Yeah. That was the conscious part of it. That's what our intention was.
Where it was, well, I remember thinking that, like
I was saying,
we have to stay in this, because if we don't, it's just gonna mean, like you said, we're getting a divorce. Right. But it was that narrative too of, like, this is how we stay in this.
Yeah, we're doing the work.
Yeah, this is how we stay in this relationship and do the hard stuff so that we have a long-term healthy relationship. And how naive was that? Like, I don't know if it was necessarily naive as much as it was like, oh yeah, now that we know better, we're going to do better. Now that we have awareness of, like, how unhealthy it was and all the detriment that it actually brings and everything else, now we can actually look at it a little bit differently.
I think it actually, honestly, for where we were, I think it served a pretty good purpose at the time. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to sit here and try and get comfortable again, but it'll take me 5 years.
Sorry. So if you're only listening to the podcast, I made her stand up.
Right. Maybe stand up again, how to do the thing. My mic's unplugged, so I can't even hear myself. I don't know what's happening right now. But we're here. Anyways, with the tools of what we had, that was a benefit to us. We have more tools now. And as I mentioned, it was like it totally hits like that dopamine. Because like when you're in it and you're getting those like chemicals that are coming, that adrenaline, that cortisol, all of that, it's still feeding with that. Mm-hmm. So that's like later on we learned. At the time, I wasn't like sitting here being like, give me my stuff. But later on, learning that that's what was actually happening. And usually, like to be honest about it, it usually caused more stress, being in the fight right then, not having our needs met, being activated, reacting all over each other. And it usually, like, it didn't always resolve. It usually just like one person just like stopped fighting.
Yeah, we kind of just gave up.
Right? One person stopped fighting and they're like, okay, we're resolved. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, we just give in.
And you're not. You're not good, but you're so sick of that. So now you've got like that bearing down and pretending like it's okay. Right. So you can be done fighting because you don't want to have it anymore. Like it's already like things are broke. You're already up making decisions in your head for like how things are going from here on out.
It's like 2 a.m. and we just need to go to sleep.
Yeah, it's fine.
I've got to get up
it's
in 4
fine.
hours
I love you
and go
too.
to work.
I love you too.
Right.
And then you're thinking about what dishes am I taking?
Yeah.
Because you're not really.
And truthfully, like sometimes. I remember those moments when we would have that. And in my mind, I'm just like, this was fucking, like we didn't solve anything.
Right? We didn't solve anything.
Nothing is better.
Usually in the other person, which you think you're avoiding, is lying there just like all in turmoil over all this shit that was said from pure exhaustion and activation.
I don't remember exactly the context, but I remember having a feeling like I said, I can't remember the fight. I can't remember the moment, but I can remember there was a moment when we first didn't do that. Like when we first did go to bed angry.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I can remember that feeling of
being like, uh-oh.
And we would like, that's the other thing where.
The beginning of the end, we did it. We went to bed angry.
Like there's a caveat, like there's a subtext to this one, right? Don't go to bed angry and don't sleep in separate beds. Like if you go to bed angry, you better not be like, well, I'm sleeping on the couch. Right. You have to like sit and marinate in all of your anger and try to sleep next to the person that's as angry as you are. That one we still kind of have.
We still do. We've never, unless we've like been separated for like work or kids, but we've never chose to sleep in another room out of anger.
Right. And we probably should have.
We probably should have. Now I'm looking back on it. There's times I got out of bed in the middle of the night and went for a walk because I was just like devastated and so upset. I couldn't sleep. Why? Just go sleep somewhere else. And there was times I'm like, why doesn't this motherfucker just go sleep on the couch?
Right. And there were times
I wanted you to get up and leave.
There were plenty of times where I wanted to get up and leave.
Yeah.
But then the story that I would tell myself, and the story that I truthfully still am telling myself, because I just realized that this is something that we actually still do, where we will go to bed angry, but we will sit there and seethe and writhe, and like all this emotion and pain is radiating from our bodies.
Because it's not time to talk about it.
Fueling,
right?
Like I can just go sleep on the couch.
And we're forcing each other in the space. You can.
I can just go sleep on the couch. You're not going to hate me. You're not going to be mad at me. You're not going to be like, well, that's it. He's leaving forever because he's gone and slept on the couch.
That would be right. And then how do we enter that? Because we haven't done that. That will be really scary the first time we try that. You're gonna be on the couch and be like, she hates me.
I know.
And I'm gonna be in there like, he hates me.
10 minutes later, you're gonna come out and be like, you can come sleep in the bed. It's okay.
But then you won't I won't, because I know you'll get up and be like, fine, and you'll do it out of anger or something. And I'm like, I will never. This one we just learned and have to unpack.
Okay.
So maybe.
So it's okay to go to bed angry.
It's okay to go to bed angry.
And it's also okay to go to bed in separate beds and or locations angry.
Now here's how you make this a healthy move, where you're looking out for your, not only like your healthy body, your energetic body, yourself, and the relationship. You're not being mean. You're not being like, I'm leaving, I'm getting a divorce. Unless you are, right? If you're like, I want a divorce and it's the truth and you're going to get a divorce, that's probably not the time to talk about it either. But whatever. If that's where you are, okay. But if you're using it as a threat or a reaction in the moment, that's not okay. Communicate. Like, I'm going to be back to talk to you about this in the morning. I need some time. I'm going to sleep here so we can cool off. Like, you're communicating that it is not a separation. It is like taking time to yourself, allowing time, allowing it to cool. like how we've talked about in the past of like when it's not bedtime and you're in an argument and you have to take a break.
Yeah.
Because you do it then, it's just at night. You're like, no, we're supposed to go to bed. Mm-hmm. But you communicated. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving you. I'm taking up 20 minutes to myself, or I still do really shitty at time frames. You know, I'm like, I gotta go in here and cool off. You're like, even just saying that, I gotta go cool off, and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna talk about this in the morning. So they know that you're not like, especially if there's abandonment issues in a relationship, which, you know, those are pretty common. I definitely have them.
You know, that's like a side of French fries. We all usually have it.
Right? You want that. You want to give your partner that. You don't have to give anything more. And they need to give you that. And they don't have to give anything more. Like, you're not being mean. You're not being cruel. The point of this is to stop it from getting worse.
Yeah.
And to allow yourselves to calm and allow your nervous systems to regulate and come back to where you can make real change, make real connection, not create more problems and more distance by using that as a way to like silent treatment and all of the ways that you can like spin this into unhealthy stuff, where the goal is to come together. And sometimes you need to take a little time apart to do so.
Yes. It's so important. It's so necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it countless times on the podcast in different episodes, but the whole idea that when you're activated and your nervous system is all over the place, your prefrontal cortex, like all the thinking part of your brain that rationalizes and comes up with good solutions and like can actually problem solve, it's nowhere near. It's not even in the same building. Like, that part of your brain is gone, and now you're just being ruled by the fight, flight, freeze, and or fawn, right?
Yes.
It's your fucking lizard brain going to town. And the idea that on top of that, you're tired, like it's the end of the day. If you have kids, like, if you have a new puppy,
jeez,
we have a new puppy right now and we can't think straight on anything. Like, if you have other things on top of being tired,
right?
The whole idea that somehow it's more beneficial to sit in that shit and in that pain and in that nervous system that's super activated. No, that's how you cause more damage to your relationship.
Right.
So it's actually healthy to just say, let's come back to this tomorrow.
Let's come back to this.
Let's push pause. Now, there's plenty of buts. There's plenty of counter arguments. One of them that came from the reel that we did online. I don't remember if it was Instagram or Facebook or something like that, but one of the comments was like, you can't go to bed angry because what if they don't wake up in the morning?
Yeah, right.
Like, if my partner dies in the middle of the night, I'm going to feel so bad, right? Like, tomorrow is never guaranteed.
Opposed to if you were getting along and they died in the middle of the night.
I would be okay with that.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have made a joke there. That was inappropriate of me.
If we went to bed happy and they died in the middle of the night, I'd be like, well, whatever. At least we were happy.
That was inappropriate. I apologize.
So that's a big counter argument. Yeah. And like, we agree to it.
Yeah.
That's a hard pill to swallow. But the reality is you then have to apply that to everything.
Yeah.
Like, what if they slip and fall in the shower? What if they get hit by a car as they're checking the mail? What if they get into an accident on their way home from work?
Yeah. This isn't to like insinuate or incite fear in you. It's like, it's just bringing awareness that you don't know. So acting out of fear isn't the way that you're going to like ease that or help a situation. Acting out of love is the way to go.
Yes.
Acting out of compassion and empathy for your partner and yourself, and for yourself on that as well.
And it's a good point. You said like acting out of fear, right? This relationship advice, this don't go to bed angry, is coming from a fear place.
Yeah.
Like, it is very much coming from a place of fear that if we do this, our relationship is going to be at risk, or like you said, maybe they'll die in the middle of the night or something terrible is going to happen, right? And anytime you're coming from fear, it's also not the best. Usually, again, that's not where the best decisions are made.
Right.
So.
And we try, but it's just unable. Like, a good way to know where you're at too, and is like, are you in an activated state? Are you in a space where it's not the best time to make these decisions or push this? It's, do you feel like the massive urgency that it needs to be handled right now? Or if like, that's where you're coming from, like, no, now. If we don't, all of this is going to happen right now. I need this. I need it now. If it is like an urgency that is almost like, think about childlike, if it's that urgency, then it is definitely time to take a break.
That's a really good, like, barometer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I don't know if I've ever put it together. Yeah. I like that one. I come from that place a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like, we have to address this right now.
I know you come in hot. Right. Like, so.
That's something I want to talk about. It's 5 minutes before bed. Get ready.
I like how we do the, we've been working on, geez, I can speak. We've been working on the bringing up a big topic like 5 minutes before we have to do something else.
Anything.
Right?
This is our favorite, right? We have about a 20-minute drive to yoga because we teach yoga on Sundays. And in the course of that 20 minutes, we try to solve all of our relationship or life problems, which is super, it's really successful. Right.
We've had awareness of it recently. So we're like, okay, we're not doing this now. But it's also it's a non-accountability way too.
Yes.
So it's like we can here's this thing and now we don't have to stay in it.
Yeah.
It's like, here we need to work on this. Yeah, we totally need to work on this. Okay, we talked about it. We got to do this other thing though.
It's so terrible. It's so pointless. It just causes so much stress.
So we're actively worried. Do you do that? Do you bring up things like right before it's time to go to work? Right. I loved when we bring up hard conconversations when you would travel and it was like on the way to the airport. What better way? Because you're on a plane and and I'm at the house. We're like, gotta go.
Yep. See you later. Sit with that one for the next 3 days. Good luck.
So if you catch yourself doing that one, like, whoo.
Yeah. That is.
We feel you.
That's unhelpful relationship advice. So
that's what we're saying. Don't do that one. We're working on it.
Let's go on to the next one. What's the next one on the list?
Happy wife, happy life.
I love this one.
Do you?
I really do. This one is kind of more, directed at the men in the relationship and or the masculine side of things, right? Happy wife, happy life. That idea. So I'm going to riff on this for a minute.
Do it. Riff on it.
I think it's really common. Mm-hmm. I think it's something that people actually pride themselves on, right? Where it's like, yeah, my wife's happy. Like everything about this statement is just terribly wrong. Like the idea that your happiness is connected to somebody else, right? Like if your wife isn't happy, then you're not happy. If your wife isn't happy, then your life is crazy or chaotic or stressful, or basically like you have to keep her happy or else. Right?
Or that her happiness is the only one that matters.
Or that her happiness is the only one that matters. Mm-hmm. That's another big aspect of it. But then I'm thinking about like the weight, like the idea that women are these things that are just monsters that you have to like throw M&Ms at and try to keep happy.
Would you try?
Or else.
I want to try that. Throw M&Ms at me.
Like there's this other aspect of it, this undertone of like, be careful.
Right.
Because if she ain't happy, she's going to make us all fucking miserable. Like that's a terrible
There's the
fucking
thing is like
stereotype.
If mama, that's saying if what was it? If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Yeah. It's
like,
the same thing.
I've heard like my mom say that. Like it's like intense.
Yeah.
I mean, she wasn't happy, but
and none of us were either.
Right.
But how does that feel? Like from the perspective of
this one isn't about me.
I know it's not about you. It's not about either of us. I don't think we've necessarily prescribed to this one.
We never have. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely don't think so. And I'm grateful for that because do you want your wife to be happy? Do you want your partner? Okay. This is where it is. Do you want your partners to be happy? Yes. You want to take care of, you want to love, you want to nurture the relationship, yourself and them. You don't want to do things that are intentionally hurting them. That's like, if you're hurting yourself, there's always obviously boundaries and things you have to look at. But when you're being a harmful, abusive person, obviously that's not a good thing. So you don't want to intentionally hurt, betray, manipulate, any of that. However, like having the whole basis of my needs don't matter. And this some women can really relate to. My needs don't matter. Happiness doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is if you're happy, then I am succeeding as a husband or partner, however that works. Okay. Because we're going to open it up. But then you are succeeding as that. So you have done it right if they're happy. Your needs don't matter. Your emotions don't matter. Your tiredness doesn't matter because as long as they're happy. So, but in a lot of times with that, there's such a break in that. Because obviously the other person's needs are going so unmet that they're not happy. How can you meet somebody else's needs when your needs aren't being met? How can you, like, it's really sad. The emotional aspect of the way this is like planned out, we're just going to use, because this is, I know that it goes beyond heteronormative relationships, but this is where it's like usually targeted at. So that's how I'm going to speak. That's also the marriage that we're in, but it does not exclude non-hetero relationships in any way.
All the other type of relationships that exist.
But it's like your feelings, men are so not allowed to have emotions and to feel things, that even happiness is implied that it is non-applicable. And that is so sad. Right. That is so sad. So yes, it's okay for you to want your wife to be happy, but it's not okay for your happiness to have no value and no meaning and no place. Like, that's so sad.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all. I don't agree with, do I want to be happy? Of course. Also, you can't make me happy. You can do things that aren't hurtful and you can do things that are helpful, but you can't make me happy. That's my job. So in order for you to literally just like sacrifice everything for an impossible job, like, what's the point in that? What's that? That's so sad. That's so sad.
The other thing for me is like the subtext of it, that like basically happiness is the point of life. Life isn't like worth living, or life isn't a thing unless you're happy. And that's like the only goal, is to be happy in life. Now, I think it's fine to have as a goal in a sense.
Yeah. Happiness.
Or strive towards it. But the truth of it is, a happy life consists of unhappiness. It consists of sorrow and sadness and grief and everything else along the way. Yes. So I'm not leaving room for my wife to be angry or upset or sad, or myself as well, right? Yeah. Where we just have to pretend that everything's fine and that we're all happy. And like, oh, I'm taking care of her. I got her everything she wants. Happy wife, happy life. And in the meantime, ain't nobody happy in that fucking relationship. Goodness gracious, baby.
Our sweet, sweet son just knew we were recording, so he popped his cute little face up against the window, pulling a face at me, and totally surprised me, because all of a sudden there was a man staring through the window. And he had the cutest little smirk. Oh my gosh, that was cute. Okay. Well, it was cute, but it totally got me. So I'm like hot in all the ways now. Like, oh God. You know when you get scared and you start sweating? It's not just me. It's not just me. I get scared and I get sweaty a little bit. It's like, ah. It's not just me. I'm not weird.
What was I saying?
Well, I got a little distracted.
So
I'm sorry.
You're okay. You're okay. The idea too of that's the only, like, oh, those people, and I'm not judging you, although I'm kind of judging people.
That's pretty low.
But I believe, like, if you prescribe, if you're the type of person or the type of couple or the type of relationship where you're like, yeah, this is how it goes, you're probably not happy. Like, the truth of it is, you're probably not happy. You're probably covering up a bunch of stuff and hiding a bunch of things, and probably, truthfully, there's a lot of disconnect, and like, it's just not a mantra that's going to lead to a long-term happy relationship.
It's not.
It can lead to a long-term relationship that's probably full of a lot of unhealed stuff.
Yeah, I have a whole other take on that too.
Sarah.
Like, so not only is it like bypassing, like allowing men to have emotions, it is also bypassing, like you said, it's taking away the ability for the woman to feel anything else. And it's not because she's so happy that she doesn't feel anything else. It's because the only thing she's allowed to present as is happy. All of that other shit she's got to shove down, because if she feels anything other than happy, then there's dysregulation, there's problems, and then is mad because she's not happy. She has to like always present happy. That's fucking exhausting.
Right.
That is exhausting. So she's not talking about a problem. She's not talking about what she's feeling. She's not sharing her life. She's learning that it's too hard to talk about those things. So she keeps them like to herself for the most part. That's a lot of disconnect. So happy wife, happy life means I do love you and I want you to be happy, but I don't know how to connect. I don't know what to do. And this is scary and hard. So why don't we try something new together. Because you're trying, like you're there, you want that. So maybe get curious about what else it could look like. Or quit trying to pretend like you're doing a really good job when you know you're being shady as fuck. Yeah. And just like, happy wife, she's happy, gotta keep her happy. Knock it off. Like,
I love your version of the man that uses this phrase. You know, gay old ball and chain when she's happy.
How many times have you heard that?
I have, yeah,
right?
Plenty of times.
Did I do the voice appropriately? I feel I did.
So if we're
if you're doing that too.
If we're correcting, don't go to bed angry as go to bed angry. It's okay to go to bed angry.
It's okay.
It's okay if your wife is unhappy.
You didn't fail and she gets to have emotions. And
Correct.
So do you.
Yeah. Okay. What's the next one?
Craig, you complete me.
Oh.
You complete me. You complete
right.
me. You complete me.
So let's all push pause for a minute and reminisce back to Jerry Maguire.
Because, like, how can you not? Come on.
Right. And old Dorothy.
I was not.
And how perfect of a line this is.
Well, you did have me a hello.
It's such a good show.
It's a good show.
To highlight really unhealthy relationship dynamics and like codependency and what else?
Oh my gosh. Like, there was a meme that I have to like break off because it's funny. Okay. So you know the part where he's like, help me, help you.
Yes.
Help me, help you. It's like me having a conversation with my teenager. Help me, help you. It's like, oh.
And then all your teenager says is, show me the money.
Oh, it didn't say that part. It didn't get to that. It was like, you're something else. You're a trip.
Show me the money.
So Jerry Maguire, that's your...
You complete me.
That's your movie guide to how to do life.
So unpacking this one a little bit, I think it has a bunch of like undertones of like, there's only one person, your soulmate, true love, all of these type of things where it's going to be this romanticized idea that there's a missing part of you out there that somebody else is going to feel, right? Like you've got my missing pieces, I've got your missing pieces. And when we come together, we're finally fully healed because you have completed this part of me. Hello, recipe for disaster, right? It's an it's an unrealistic expectation.
You're supposed to complete me.
Right.
It's your job to complete me. If you don't complete me, I don't have this.
Or even just the idea that that's the dynamic that happens in relationships where they complete like you're not missing anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's all just super.
They can add to your life and to your like relationship. Your partner is like adding to it and like benefiting it. They are not responsible for completing you, making you whole. That's not saying you are healed before you get into a relationship. There's definitely stuff that you're going to bring up for each other. There's like, we don't believe that you're ever fully healed, but for it to be the other person's job or responsibility to be completed by the other person, or that you don't have a sense of an identity, so the other person becomes your identity, so you feel complete because now you can have an identity because you've attached to them. Now, obviously, this all comes from trauma. This comes from a lot of unhealthy things.
Right. Attachment styles. So that's what I was thinking about,
like,
Jerry Maguire.
This is me. You haven't done anything wrong.
Like you've got, Renee Zellweger's anxious attachment style versus his avoidant attachment style. And how like his statement of like, you complete me is like totally the toxic avoidant attachment style that's designed to like pull at the heartstrings.
Oh man, she was hook, line, and sinker.
Right.
I'm all in. I will do anything.
That freaking lady like packs up her, like her entire life, all of it.
Fuck.
So terribly unhealthy.
It's as we're sitting here, I'm thinking here too, like I can see all the like ways that I've played into that one too.
Me too.
Like, we totally.
I am
we're not above all this. We're right here with you. If you're like, shit.
I am a one-line guy from movies.
Oh my God, yes.
Right?
And they fucking worked.
Well, it's because I was raised watching fucking Tom Cruise. Freaking John Cusack holding up a boombox.
if you did that, it would work. That's the thing. It would work.
You know, it's raining here in Tennessee,
It
baby.
is. Dude,
I'm going to go to like Salvation Army, and I'm going to find an old boom box.
Are you going to play in
and a
my
brown
eye?
trench coat?
Please. You don't even need the trench coat.
I'll just go out there naked and
Yeah.
stand in the rain and hold that boom box up. Yes.
Also have fun with it and go do that, because that's fun.
So yeah, it's like, it feels good, I think, to have that. Like, from my perspective, it feels good to like give that. It's like, I love you this much. This is how much I see you. This is how important this relationship is. Like, I'm giving you all of this love and adoration, and like, this is how deeply I love you. Yeah. Right. And it feels great to receive that amount of love, and that, like, to be seen that way and to have that connection and everything. All of those things feel really, really, really good. But the root of them, I think, is coming from a really unhealthy, toxic place.
I think to be so, like, if it's, I don't know, I think I kind of maybe spin off a little bit out of what we're saying here. Usually that kind of dynamic is one way. It's, you complete me. I'm not worthy, but you've taken this on me. And the other person is the, like, feeling not enough, but now they're being seen. So there's value in this, and finally have value and like receive all this love and feeling like they almost don't deserve it. So there's usually a power dynamic that goes into play where this you complete me gets unhealthy. But if you have, like, if there's a mutual give and take, and it's not that it's always 50-50, not saying that, but you are able to give and receive love. You are able to give and receive space. You are able to see the other person and be seen by the other person. There's a part of where this can, like, that amount of love does feel good to give and feels good to receive. But when you're doing it for acceptance, for, I don't know how to, like, we're going to spin off on this one. Like, as all these goes, there's shadow and light, right? There's a positive, there's a negative, it's just like however you want to look at it. There's different levels of it. They play a part at different points in time. So this may have been something that worked for you before, and it may be something that is toxic for you. If it's the only thing that you were at, maybe take a look. But, like, I don't know.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's hard to let go, I think, of like the fantasy that this kind of thing creates, right? The love story inside of our minds and inside of our hearts, that our relationship is this beautifully, and like, you don't have to, like you said, it serves a purpose. Maybe it lands for you at the time that it lands for you, and it was something that you kind of like needed, I guess. But the truth of it, like, if we really boil it down, not one person is there, like, you are complete as you are right now.
Yes. I was going off what you said, not the complete.
Absolutely. Like, you're whole as you are right now.
Yes.
And you don't actually need another person to, like, feel any, like, I don't know. We could go on and on and on, but yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. Right.
That one we could hash out a little bit more.
Yeah.
That one's definitely a unique experience. The truth is usually those come from a lot of ups and downs. And when a relationship is full of a lot of, like, really dramatic ups and downs, that's usually a
bipolar relationship.
It's a cycle. It's a cycle of where you're, like, addicted to the highs and lows. The highs and lows, and what is it? Like, the hormones. That's what I'm trying to get. Like, the hormones that are coming through and the chemicals that are dumping into your body. So those big lows bring the big highs. So it's like this, like, trauma bonding loop thing, because you're in this, like, things are terrible and things are, like, you're at your wit's end, and what are you going to do? And then when that love comes through, of course, that's going to feel amazing, because you were at, like, like, this is the worst, to everything is magical. And now either, like, now I complete them, and here's everything's okay and everything's perfect, and we're going to be happily ever after and everything. And we can do, like, all of that, like, super, that cyclical way that you go on those rounds. is where it's like a really unhealthy relationship pattern, a really unhealthy dynamic. Yeah, those highs feel amazing, but you have to crash hard to get those. And that's not saying the relationship doesn't feel good. And you like have these moments of feeling good and feeling bad. Your relationship, you will cycle through it. There are ebbs and flows. There's going to have good days and hard days. But when you have to like create chaos to achieve the good days, in that you complete me form, that's where it gets like at some unhealthy patterns that you are both participating in and get curious and look at.
Yeah, that's the codependency and the enmeshment and everything else that is happening and taking place, that it's such a hard pattern to break to. It's such a like difficult, challenging dynamic to actually step out of because you are so accustomed to it. Like the truth of it is healthy relationships, and I use air quotes, right? Because who's to say that our definition of a healthy relationship is yours? But the reality is they're kind of boring.
Yes.
Because there's not the big emotional highs, or there's not all of this stuff that is taking place that is causing so much like chaos and stress. They're just kind of boring because you've learned to balance and regulate your nervous system, and you can communicate and like, oh, I'm getting a little worked up. I think we're going to need to push pause on this and talk about it later.
Instead of engaging and creating all that.
And then the supportive partner's like, oh, of course, that's okay. Yeah, we'll push pause. We'll come back to it later. And then you come back to it later and you actually solve the fucking problem without hurting each other. And then you just like have dinner and that's normal and it's boring and that's healthy and that's okay.
Right? There's that whole like life once in a, like we even have that, I think we have that sign like once in a while life gives you a fairy tale. Like that fairy tale, like that's what makes you special, are these highs, that connection. When I first learned this, letting go of that, and first time I heard relationships are actually boring, I was like, what? If they're boring, they're not going to be in. Like it felt like I had to create like massive amounts of connection and enjoyment and all of this, or the relationship was going to end, because boring meant bored, meant stray, meant dissolving. So it was really hard for my brain to even understand the truth of that it doesn't have to be chaotic. It doesn't have to be full of highs and lows. Highs and lows still happen, but these extreme chaotic or euphoric bounce back and forth is just, it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to unpack, and it's really hard to look at.
It is.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next one. This one is happy couples never fight. So the whole idea of, well, if you're fighting, then there's something wrong. You know, happy couples, healthy relationships, they don't fight.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that's the complete opposite. It's actually really healthy to fight, and it's normal, and that's a really good sign if you are fighting. Now, of course, we have the big, huge added caveat of like, we're not talking about all the toxic ways that fights happen. We're not talking about physical abuse or emotional abuse or any other type of abuses that take place. Like, we're just talking about in the course of a relationship where you have disagreements and arguments about any number of things that comes up, right?
Yeah.
Like that idea that if you're fighting, that there's something wrong, or that maybe they're not the one for you, or that like, oh my gosh, like this is all we do is fight all the time. I mean, definitely something to look at.
Right.
But the idea too that you can't fight, or that you can't bring up disagreements, or that you can't have arguments, or that you can't go through that kind of conflict, that's not a healthy relationship. That's the complete opposite, right?
Yeah.
That's stuffing down and avoiding and not looking at and not addressing and just burying everything so that you keep some sense of like normalcy, quote unquote, that is healthy, because we're not fighting. We never fight.
Right.
Like if we hear somebody that says, yeah, we just never fight, I'm like, what are you guys not dealing with?
Right. You know, that can come with like avoidance. We never fight. That can also come with unhealthy power dynamics, where you don't fight because one is in control of everything and the other one doesn't challenge, have their own opinions, have their own needs, have their own boundaries.
Right.
It's really a lack of boundaries and over assertion of control that happens a lot of the times too. So like, yeah, we never fight because the other person always is like, yes.
We avoided fights for a long time.
Yeah.
I think in our relationship, because of this like, I know I have a fear every time we fight. I'm like, every time we fight, I'm upset.
Right.
No, but I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Like every single time. It doesn't even matter because it's so like, it literally takes me all the way back to being a kid.
Yeah.
And when my mom and dad would fight, immediate fear, right? It was like, oh my God, the world is coming to an end. I don't even know what's going to happen. I'm so afraid right now. And that's the exact same feeling I get if you and I are either suddenly we're in a fight, or I know that like maybe I need to talk about something that has the potential of maybe causing a fight or a disagreement. Immediately I'm just like, oh, no, I can't do it. I'm so afraid.
Right.
I'm so afraid. I hate it. Do you feel that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's really, really hard. Fighting, I didn't know that there was a healthy way to have a disagreement with somebody. I didn't know that like just disagreeing with somebody was healthy. I thought it was either like lots of toxicity, lots of trauma, so fighting was so scary. And the fact that we didn't fight was such a big deal. We didn't fight. It was easy to go along with you too. But like violence wasn't like, that's another thing. If you're coming from a really difficult relationship and going into another one, you can't see a lot of things. When you like get into this non-fight, it's because you still have all this baggage to unpack. I didn't unpack the baggage. Like you got all the baggage. Same with me. Like I got all your baggage. You didn't unpack shit either.
I think I unpacked a duffel bag.
You did not.
Maybe a shaving kit.
Maybe a shaving kit. I'll give you a shaving kit. I was like, okay, got my shit. Let's go.
I think you unpacked a purse.
Do you think so?
Hell yeah.
Thank you. Look at that shaving kit and purse.
Right. Got the shit covered.
Now we're a lot of work, but fighting not only meant like the end, the world was like violence. So us not fighting meant I didn't have to be fearful of assault, didn't have to be fear of violence. So fighting was too scary. And it was way easier for me, which is a lot of reason why we didn't fight, is to keep the peace instead of risking violence.
Yeah.
Even though there was no violence, my body didn't know that. And so now that I can get more into it, like I'll fight you, like we'll fight, but it's still, I'm like, not only do I think like it's really hard for me. Gosh, these words are so hard. Obviously this is a triggering thing for me because I'm stammering and having a hard time speaking, but I have to consciously like calm my inner child. I have to calm my body, speak to it. Sometimes I just throw my hands up and ask for help because I'm like, take this, I can't do this. But when I'm like having that, I'm calming, reparenting myself in fights that like, we don't have to leave and you're not leaving because I'm sure it's over. Like instead of like, this is it, this is the end, like it's over, he hates you, he's leaving. And then you're like, you should leave. And like all of this inside. So it's constantly calming the reactions. And I really want it to not be a thing that I have to work so hard at one day. And I'm also okay if it's always a thing I have to work at because I'm willing to work at it. But it's hard. It's hard. I'm never like, we never fight. And we have a lot of baggage. So it's hard to get through, which is why fighting is so scary. And when you're that scared, because you're scared when we fight, I'm scared when we fight. So then we're taking our activated kids and they're like, rawr.
Yeah. Then we're trying to do all of that with those nervous systems that are out of whack.
Misinterpreting everything the other person says because we're trauma listening, because our activation is just, we're looking for the threats. And
that's one of my favorite things that happens when because I'll do it too, right? Okay. Where either one of us, we will hear something that literally wasn't spoken at times, or like we will hear it through such activated trauma ears that it's like, I'm like, yeah, I think we should probably get Mexican for dinner. And what you hear is like, fuck you, we're getting Mexican for dinner. And I'm like,
since you never cook, I guess we'll go take out.
Right? Like that's what you'll hear. Or I'll hear things all the time.
Guess it's up to you to always think you're like,
where like you'll say something and I will believe that you're saying it in a certain tone. And in reality, that wasn't the case. Like that's taken me a really long time to accept that, okay, maybe I actually am hearing that differently than you, not just intended for it. Because that's one thing you're like, well, that wasn't my intention by any means, right? And not from like the super not taking
not
accountability.
My intention. Sorry, you feel that way.
Right? Not from that perspective, but from like genuinely like, no, that's definitely not my intention. Yeah. That happens. But there's also the thing where I will hear it differently because I'm activated than it was actually said.
Yes.
And that is so crazy.
That is way crazy. I love that we have taken such a good account with each other on like saying back what we heard or how we're feeling and allowing the other person. Because so many times, like, I think it was like also hard for you to believe me when I'm like, that's not what I meant. Because also we would be defensive. That's not what I said. That's not what I meant. Why are you hearing that? We didn't know how to have those conversations. So saying like what I heard was, I'm feeling this way. And so many times you would say like, this is what I felt when you said that. I'm like, holy shit. Okay. I can see how it sounded like that. Like, can I validate, like, I see that makes sense. I can see how that sounded like that. And why that was how it felt to you. Can I tell you like what it actually was? And then we have that. And then I can see when you're like, oh, can I tell you what I was actually saying? Because I can see that validating the other person's experience, doing our best not to take it personal when it was something different. And then addressing it, like if they're ready to hear it, what the truth of it actually was. And the hard one is sometimes when you hear that, they're like, this is what it feels like. And you have to say, yeah, that's exactly what it is. But when you say it back, I hear that was shitty, but that's exactly how I meant it. Like one time,
So it happened once.
I remember it was like a healthy way that we did it. You're like, this is what it feels like you're doing. And I was like, shit. That's exactly what I'm doing. And I don't know how to not do that right now. And I don't know how to want to do that right now because it felt like such a protection thing. And then it started happening, started being able to work with it more. But you have to also be accountable and not use that as a manipulation of, oh, no, that's not what I was saying. Because bullshit.
Right.
Be accountable so that they can trust you.
I'm sorry, that's what you heard.
Yeah. So be accountable so they can trust you. Because misinterpretations happen. They happen. They're common. They happen. You have different meanings, different feelings, different stories. So even though you're like, yes, I understand you said you wanted Mexican, but what I'm hearing is this. And you're like, I said I want to have Mexican. You're like, oh, I heard you. I know what you meant.
You love Selma Hayek more than me.
Right? So it's just like allowing the fact that your interpretation, and this isn't gaslighting yourself, but your interpretation may be wrong in that. And so being able to listen and hear the other person, and also like I always have a hardest time when I say that on podcasts because you never know who's listening. And I don't want somebody.
You always want to make sure to that one person out there that
it's not that one person
fucking gaslit.
It's not that one. I would love it to only be one person and somehow take it away from that person.
Just out of the people that are listening.
Right. Jeez. But like there's also there's also gaslight. Okay, this doesn't apply to that, and there's a different feeling that you have in your body when that is happening. So it's not one of peace. It's one of you feel like you're crazy. You never know what's happening. Everything's controlled. You think everything's your fault. So many different ways where this is not that case and this does not apply to this, because you will also take that and say, you're right. It's my fault. I am doing this. I am misunderstanding. And if you are being gaslit, you learn how to also gaslight yourself. So that is not this.
All of that comes.
Yes.
How many more times can I say something that makes everybody think? Yeah, okay. Come. All of this is a product of us actually going towards conflict and fighting. Like had we just continually avoided conflict, we would have been divorced long ago.
Right.
Like the truth of it is we just wouldn't have lasted because it's natural and it's normal and it can be a really healthy, beneficial thing because it's going to happen. Like, there's no way, like, even though we've done so much work and we're healed and healing and blah, 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 we still fight all the time and we're still going to fight and we're still going to have disagreements and arguments. Right. So you just have to get really good at the repair process and really good at the acknowledgement that it's going to happen and forget about this whole idea that it's a sign that there's something wrong or that happy couples don't fight, or like I know I still do this, not as much as I used to, but you'll see another couple or you have friends or something like that and you see them from the outside and you're like, oh my God, they're so happy. I bet they never fight, or I never see them fight, or they never just like, you always have this perception that all these other relationships around you are better than
they
your
have their
relationship,
shit together.
Right? And they don't. Nobody does.
Right. We're all doing our best.
Yeah. So let's go on to the next one.
There was one more thing before it went. I think I lost it. Hold on. Oh, also, it's not like fighting isn't about a winner. It's not about winning. And if you felt like you won, like if you win, somebody loses.
Right.
So if you feel like you won the fight, then good job, good for you. But your partner is feeling something very, very different. So fighting isn't about winning and getting your point and getting them to see things your way. When you have these conflicts, and we're saying fighting, but it's as if you're just saying like a mild disagreement, a conversation that is activated, or I don't even know. So we're going to say fighting, right? Because you're fighting. But if your goal is to win, your relationship will lose. If the goal is to come together, is to hear the other person, you're not going to solve everything. You are not going to agree on everything. You're not going to come to an agreement of where you're seeing it the same way. Sometimes you will, but a lot of times
that's the resolution of the fight, is that we both disagree, and that's just the nature of what it is right now. Right. And it might stay that way for a really long time. And that's okay. We both have our own perceptions and ideas of what this situation is and or looks like or requires. And neither one of us is like going to see that differently for the time being. And that's okay. Yeah. Two things can be right, even when they're opposites.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you.
So I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was perfect. You added perfectly what I was trying to say.
Because we have a couple on this list. I don't think we're going to get to all of them, but I want to do the got to play hard to get. Got to play hard to get.
Yeah,
okay. I want to unpack that one. Okay. Right? Because that is something that is like, it's not quite as, I mean, it still plays out in relationships. Like if you're in a committed relationship and you've been together for like 5 years, this idea that you have to play hard to get is probably, it might still be, taking, especially if it took place at the beginning of your relationship, you're probably still using it in some ways, especially in regards to sex, right?
Yeah. Another way to look at it is making the other person, like feeling like you have to work for the other person's affection, or making the other person work for your affection, your time, your connection.
Right. That's how it plays out in relationships. Yes. Thank you. I like that. And then in the beginning of a relationship, right, the courting process, that whole thing where we're trying to do like the special, like what's those birds that alter.
Like the courting?
Yeah.
That's the mating dance?
Yeah. Right. Show you my big feathers. Anyways.
I like your feathers. Oh my gosh.
Playing hard to get is something that happens, I think, still, like over and over and over and over again.
I'm blushing at you showing me your big feathers. I'm still trying to recover.
And what's it a sign of, you think, babe?
You got to read. I was not active listening. I was like on your big feathers. No. Okay.
What's the undertone, or what's the...
Say it again for me.
The playing hard to get.
Oh. I don't... Because that's... It's okay. It is avoided, but there's learned behavior. It is learned. You are supposed to play hard to get.
Typically women, right?
Yes. So you don't appear easy, because if they can get it easy, they don't want it. And then men are supposed to gotta
work for it.
Like not only gotta work for it, but also work for the physical, but their emotions are where they play hard to, they have to be aloof. They can't be emotional or sensitive for it. They have to act like, their emotions, their heart is hard to get. It's the men's heart are hard to get, and the women's body are hard to get.
Right. And the whole idea of you got to make them work for it. Right.
Work for their affection, work for their body. Like you have to and you're wrong if you give it too soon.
Because he's got to prove himself.
He's got to prove himself.
Like that's the way that he proves to you that he actually really loves you. Because you play hard to get, and then he's got to work to get you. And if he does everything that he's supposed to, then I guess I will open my legs.
And then, having that connection of that is what love is. And that's how you get it.
Right. And that's how you build your relationship.
That's how you build it. And if it's anything else, then what is it? Why would they buy the cow when they can get the milk for free? Things like that. Where it's just discourage, just totally toxic, doesn't even begin to cover it. It's horrible dynamics. You don't have to wait for 3 hours or 3 days or whatever to text her. Those are kid games. If you're like, oh, it's too soon to text, like those are childish games. And I don't think children are listening to this podcast. They should not be. But, you know, those are games that are not, there's no point in playing them. There's like, don't play those. There's, oh my gosh.
Like the whole
I'm
idea.
so tongue-tied right now. I don't know why this is, I got activated and I am like struggling right now.
Well, it comes from this, not what you're experiencing right now, but in regards to this topic, right? Like you said, it's a childish way of approaching relationships.
And it's a shaming way of approaching it.
Because think of what this would feel like.
So
like
hard.
The alternative would be like, I really enjoyed our time together. I would like to spend some more time with you, and I'd like to go out again because I feel a connection to you, and I feel like we probably, you know, we have some similar likes. And I just, truthfully, I like spending time with you. And if you're open to it, I'd like to do some more of that. Right. And then you can be like, cool, I really enjoy that. Like that doesn't feel safe. Right.
To let them know you like them that much. Like for like, whoa, like the other person, like they're going to think I'm crazy, or the other person deems them crazy. Right. Whoa, that was a little fast. You like me? You want to spend time with me? Whoa, what do you want? What are you after? They must be crazy. They're going to be stalkers.
And then that's why the other person won't open up and show vulnerability and express what they're actually thinking and feeling, right? Because then they're going to be viewed that way. And all of it is designed to like perpetuate all of this unhealthiness that comes from the place of like societal norms that says, you got to play hard to get, right? Got to make them work for it. Instead of being like, oh, there's actually a really healthy way that we could do this. And we could also say, you know what? I actually don't want to see you anymore.
Right. You can say that. It's not always connection.
Right.
Right. You're not wrong if you don't want to spend time with somebody else.
Yeah.
You can just say that.
It's so outdated.
But it's, oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's like when you were talking about it earlier in the context of like now in an existing relationship, how does that play out again? Remind me.
How did I say that?
Let's push rewind.
Like making the other person work for intimacy, connection, just like in the relationship. So if you're going to have to give me this in order to get this, I'm going to withhold my emotions, my connection until I get what I want from you, or like I have to make you work for it so you don't take it for granted, because you don't want to take the other person for granted, which you don't. But that doesn't mean that you're like dangling a carrot for them and making them work and feel like you're going to take it away. That's manipulation. So if you have to manipulate the other person to not be taken for granted, that's something to take a peek at together. And like this isn't a dynamic that we want to keep going.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And also that I just heard in the back of my head, that doesn't mean like you're giving everything. Like you can still say, that doesn't take away your right to be like, I don't feel like connecting right now. Like that doesn't mean, oh, they're making me work for it. And say, I don't feel like connecting. I don't feel like being sexual. I don't feel like having emotional intimacy or physical intimacy, sexual intimacy. I don't feel like doing that right now. I need some space. Doesn't mean you're making the other person work for it. And the really cool thing is when you're not playing those games and making your partner work for your affection, work for your time, working for connection, space isn't difficult to take. Space, even if you're like feel nervous taking it, your partner isn't going to punish you for taking it. Space is like, yeah, it's cool. I may still really want to be intimate with you right now, but like it's fine that we're not. Like that's totally cool. It would feel really shitty if you pushed beyond your boundary. Like, so that becomes a really healthy expression where boundaries are honored, and then connection is by default. I say by default because it happens so, is deeper. The benefit, your connections are deeper. When you do come together, it does feel better because it's not a forced or resentment or worked for or manipulated and like withheld. It's just like, it's simple. It's really like, yeah, here's affection. I have it for you. No, I don't have it for you right now. It's just a yes or no on it. Do I feel this? Am I stepping into this? Yes. Are you feeling this? Are you stepping into this? Yes. Am I able to receive? Are you able to receive? It's really simple when you take all the bullshit out of it, but it's really, really hard to take all the bullshit out of it.
You got to be vulnerable.
Right.
Then you got to open up your heart. Is there any more on there that you want to hit, babe, before we move on? You sure?
I think we've given all of our, like, you're welcome, world. We've given you all the Craig and Steph advice, and now everybody is ready to move on with their relationships with the best advice ever. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. I don't know what to say.
Okay. if any of I'm hoping the intention was to kind of have fun with this episode as well, but also to get you to think about some of these differently, because some of these we've prescribed to over the years and we've really had to shift up perspective on them. And that's a hard, challenging thing. So if some of these really triggered you in a sense and you were like, well, I don't know if I believe, I still like this one, or I think they're way off. And we definitely could be off on any of them, but the intention and the idea too is just to get curious about it, especially if you have a hard time. Like for example, the don't go to bed angry one, if you're like, yeah, that's a terrible idea. Don't ever go to bed angry. Really lean in there and see if that really makes sense to you. And if you're just like, yeah, it makes sense to me. Cool. That's fine. Do it. Go to bed angry then. Yeah. Or don't go to bed angry.
Yeah. If that works for you, do it. We're sharing our opinions.
Yeah. These are definitely our opinions.
Right. I think it's funny that we totally left off the two probably most challenging ones that we didn't get there. Maybe we'll talk about it another time. Maybe we won't.
And if you have more too, like if this sparked something in you, or if there's some more that you want to share with us and you want our take on them, you can hit us up and let us know what those are. That brings us to the part of the episode where we answer questions. So you can call those questions anytime. Not call those questions anytime. You can actually call and leave us a voicemail and share your questions that way, and we play those on the podcast. So the number to call us is 423-521-0355. That's
423-521-0355.
We're going to get that memorized.
We are. Point. Maybe.
We'll never actually get that memorized. Or you can email us those questions, or even just DM us on any of the platforms where people follow us. So this week's question, do you want to read it, babe?
Okay.
This one comes from email. Somebody sent this in to us.
She said, I just found you on social media and I am healing from an incredibly abusive 32-year marriage. I'm scared to death of falling in love again. Understandable. Yet it just happened. How do I not bring my crazy into this new relationship?
Right?
I'm feeling for you.
So I think that the idea that, first off, like a 32-year relationship is going to take a really, really long time to heal from, right? Yeah. Especially if it was filled with trauma and abuse and everything
32 years of that.
Yeah, that's a long time. And it's not to say it's not possible. Of course, we're not saying that.
First of all, she got out of that.
That's a really big deal.
Amazing. The strength in you to be able to survive that and then get out of that. And now you're moving on. Do you realize how powerful you are?
Yes.
That's pretty amazing.
Super huge. However, that amount of time with somebody, especially in a traumatic, unsafe environment, is going to have massive impacts on your nervous system, on your psyche, on your emotions. Like it's going to have an impact on you.
Yeah.
And in all likelihood, that also, because you were in a relationship like that, you probably also have some other things prior to that relationship that led you to be in a relationship like that. And that's not a judgment. That's just kind of what happens. And so then there's more stuff to heal from and more baggage to kind of unpack. And the idea that you're somehow just never going to bring any of that kind of stuff, craziness, baggage, issues into a future relationship or this relationship that you've just found now, like we want to normalize the fact that it's okay to bring your stuff to a relationship. It's okay to bring your crazy and your baggage. Like you don't have to hide it. Yeah. And the fact is, if you hide all of your baggage and you hide all of your stuff, it's going to come out anyways.
Yeah. In really unhealthy ways, the ways that you're trying to avoid it coming out, the parts that you want to hide, that's how it's going to come out.
So it's impossible to.
Yeah.
And it's an unreasonable expectation to place on yourself or your partner, right? I'm sure that your partner probably has some stuff as well, and that the idea that they are not allowed to show up with their baggage, like all the stuff that we go through and experience, it makes us who we are. So you're literally setting aside a part of who you actually are, and you don't want to actually do that, right? We don't want to keep that from the person that we just met or that we just fell in love with, that we want to start cultivating and building a healthy relationship with. Now, there's healthy ways to go about like sharing your trauma or baggage or your craziness with a new person. And that is an important kind of thing to be mindful of. Sometimes we trauma dump all of this information when we get into a relationship, and like you and I did this, where we're like, here's everything. Yeah. Let me scare you away with all of my stuff.
That was the goal. That was the goal. Like, you don't want this.
Subconsciously, it's like, I'll show you how unworthy I am.
Yeah. It's like thinking that we weren't in the team. So I wonder how like that resonates with you. Do you feel like, are you withholding all of that, or are you kind of looking, are you feeling towards that? Have you done trauma dumping and you're trying to avoid it?
But I think the important thing is to realize, like, take any pressure off of yourself that you have to somehow hold that back, or you can't share any of that with this new person, because you have to, and it's going to happen whether you want it to or not. So you might as well kind of do it consciously and connect it to it in a way that can be done in a healthier way, in a more productive way. So you just have a conversation with that partner. You just openly talk about it. You're like, hey, I've got a lot of stuff from my past, and I know that it's kind of shaped and influenced how I am in life. And I want to make sure that in this relationship that we do our best to kind of work on it together. And, I'm going to support you, and I hope you support me. And we've got a lot of healing to do, but we think it's possible. And I think that's a much better approach than trying to feel like you have to hide it, or even that there's a part of you that has to be hidden, right?
Or that you can manage to just not bring it, that you can just forget about it as much as you would like to and just leave it there.
Gosh, I would love to be able to just forget about it.
I have another like part of that too, like some accountability for you is, had you not been in another relationship, understandable, you would like look for help beforehand. But where you're at now, you're in it. Like you're already there. You still need to like give yourself the gift of getting help along the way. You don't go through something like that unscathed, like Craig had said, there is effects. So the fact is that you have some deep programs and patterns that are ingrained in there. So now is a beautiful time to reach out for help. Now is a beautiful time to have somebody help guide you through this, unpacking your experiences and the new behaviors and programs that either got solidified from childhood or that you developed along the way in this, because there's going to be both. There's going to be a lot coming through. You've gone through 32 years. That's a significant amount of time. New programs were installed. So having somebody help you to unpack them. And then when you're having that conversation with your partner too, like this is like my experiences, this is what I'm working on. So they can see, when things are coming up, this is what you're working on. Having these communication isn't just a like, oh, I'm crazy, so you just have to deal with it, right? I have all of this stuff. It's like, wow, I really experienced a lot, and I'm actively working on it. Would you like to know about what I'm working on? And how much you feel comfortable sharing with what you're working on. But you still get the process of healing with them, but very, very, very much, very significantly, you really need time to work on you and heal you and give yourself that gift of love to really help you unpack everything that you have experienced. It doesn't make it go away, but carrying all that with you is just think about giving yourself the gift of love and getting help on your journey.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. As always, you can email those questions into us. You can call and leave us a voicemail. You can DM us. We love all the questions that we get, and we're having a lot of fun answering them on the podcast. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Like we said, if there's something else, if there's what did we call these? Relationship advice or stereotypes that are used throughout
like old outdated advice, or maybe advice that doesn't apply.
Yeah, if you've got one that you want our take on it, hit us up and we'll share it. Maybe we'll do a reel on it or something like that. So,
we got a couple more. We could do a whole other episode if you throw some new ones.
We could. We can do a future episode on these. They're actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll keep an eye out for some more, and then we'll do another episode down the road. Okay. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys next week.